Selling is all about understanding the buyer. If you can understand how the buyer performs, if you understand what they need, if you understand what they want, you're going to be in a better position to be able to give them exactly that. And in return, they're going to give you the hard-earned cash, baby. And you're going to make money. However, what I see sometimes is that as sales reps, we tend to give them what we want. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about incentives, how those work not only for customers, but also for your employees, and how that's going to help you to leverage to increase more revenue. You're going to love this episode. This episode is brought to you in part by TSE Certified Sales Training Program. It's a program designed to help sales rep and sales team to improve their skills. Teaches you how to find the right customers, what activities, what strategies work, how you go about asking the right questions to build strong value, and what you need to do to close more deals. If you want to test it out for yourself, go to thesalesevangelist.com/free course to get the first 2 modules absolutely free. Again, thesalesevangelist.com/free course. This episode is also brought to you in part by Audible. Knowing that you're a savvy salesperson, you're here, you want to learn, you want to grow. Check out Audible. They have thousands of titles that you can choose from. Take advantage of the 30-day free trial as well as a free book. Simply go to audibletrial.com/TSE. Again, audibletrial.com/TSE. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. And I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we have Mr. Jason Adkins. Jason is the founder and CEO of 360 Insight, a global channel sales incentive leader. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about incentives, how these work not only to increase ROI, with working with your customers, but also on the other side of the line and how those can help your employees. So we're going to give you some good stuff today that you can take and apply if you're a sales leader, if you're a sales rep, if you are someone who just likes amazing podcasts and you want to hear some amazing content. This is it today. So let's go ahead and dive into the episode. Take us out, Mr. DJ. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you, sir, for having me today.
Bro, I'm excited. I know you're excited. We're all excited. And we're going to chat and give some good insights today. But before we dive into all the fun stuff, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. So Jason Adkins, founder of 360 Insights. 360 Insights is a software platform for large brands to execute all of their channel incentive strategies. So we work with tens of thousands of salespeople that work for major brands and help them get smarter and make what we call data-driven decisions.
I love that you said that data-driven decision, because sometimes we hear that sales is, you have to be born with it to be successful. And I don't believe that to be true. I believe anyone with a desire to sell can succeed and get the proper training. And especially when it comes towards knowing the data and understanding the data and how to perform, that's going to help you tremendously. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. But why do you feel that data is so critical when it comes towards selling and selling effectively?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. When I think about sales, I always think it's like part art, part science, right? And the art is around the relationship, the conversation handling, how you're leading the people and the objection handling, and the science is all around the data side of things and then the activities that you're actually doing. So, when there is so much data in the world we have today, I was with some people last week at an event, and one of the guys was saying there's an article out there saying that we've created more data in the last year than we have in all of mankind combined together. And that just is exponential. Like, it just keeps growing. And you think about how much data is there. It almost gets to the point of like, how do you mine through the data and how do you leverage really what we talk to our clients about, the insights within the data? How do you make it actionable so when you're making the decisions, they're actionable decisions driven by data?
I didn't know that stat. That's ridiculous, man. Think about how much we've created. Half of that crap is mine too. No, but it's so important, so impactful though when it comes towards it. And I feel that so many companies, like, we're not even scratching the surface in understanding data. Am I off on that?
No, you're 100%. When we work with brands, we go in. I'll give you a ton of examples as we talk through today on leveraging data. But we work with a big brand. They come into the U.S. marketplace and they're like, people buy products because there's promotions on them, there's rebates on them. We're like, we don't believe that's accurate. We have a lot of data that supports that it's not accurate, but we'll execute the program how you want. Our only caveat is we're going to track data throughout and actually track consumer purchase information and figure out why did they buy what they bought. And what we learned for the brand after we executed the promotion was the fourth reason why was the actual promotion on it. The number one reason was because the sales guy told me to buy it, right? And then it goes back to this whole thing of like, well, why are you so focused on the promotion when you should be focused on the key drivers to the relationship with that salesperson on the product? How are they educated on the product that you have? How are they ensured that they're that trusted advisor? And a lot of times when people are buying something from somebody, they want to talk to somebody about being their trusted advisor. Purchases is a big decision for people, and people, typically are buying, based on that advice that people have. And so how are you leveraging that to ensure you give them great advice?
And this brings up an idea too, like how so many of us will do stuff just because the status quo, or this is the way I'm sure you've heard the example of I think it was Zig Ziglar that did the speech talking about his wife making like a roast or something like a meatloaf, and how she would cut off the ends or something like that. And it turns out because that's the way her mom did it, and she didn't know why she was cutting off the ends of it. She just did it that way forever. And it turns out the reason why her mom did that because it was too small to fit in the pot that she had or something to bake. But the whole idea is that why are we doing stuff based on instinct or just because this is what the manager has done before, this is what the company before us did? Why don't we look at the data, especially in a day and age like today? Like sometimes, you find these sales reps, I find that I've done it where I just did crap, this email, I'm going to email first or before I make a phone call. And it's like, well, is that what is actually the most effective based on this industry? Does it make sense for me to connect on LinkedIn first before making a call?
Yep.
Am I making sense there, man?
Oh, man, 100%. And we always talk about is context to the data, right? So what you were just talking about was the person was doing something because they didn't have context to why the decision was made in the first place, right? Yeah. And that's so much we work with brands. When we're working with them on all of their incentive strategies and the promotional spend, we're always trying to figure out what's the context around the decisions that were made in the past. Let's look at the hypothesis of what we should be doing in the strategy, what we should be doing in the future. Let's go and execute something against that, and let's measure it, right? And that's one of the things, like, when we started the company, I started the company in 2008, we were out there and I was like, one of the things we focused on was sales incentives. So executing sales incentives for big brands. And I said, well, shouldn't the first thing we do is understand why do people sell what they sell? And we're like, oh yeah, we should do that. So we went out and we interviewed 1,500 sales reps, that were selling, large brand products, and saying, why do you sell what you sell? And there's like 6 reasons why somebody sells what they sell. If you walk into like a retail store, et cetera, they sell it because the quality of a product, they talk to us about, it's this, they want to ensure that they get referrals, that people are coming back and they're happy customers. They don't want to sell something that's not great. They sell something because of price point, right? Is an important thing. If somebody's coming in and going to spend $1,000, you probably can get them to spend $1,500 or maybe $2,000 if you're lucky, but they're not going to spend $5,000. So price point's important. They sell something because of the brand. People like to buy something they've heard of before. So like a brand new brand is really challenged because they like to buy brand names. They sell something because of how they've been educated on the product. Like I was saying earlier, people want to be trusted advisors. If somebody's asking you for advice or having a conversation, well, that's really important to have the education around it, the value prop. They sell something because they want to know what's in it for them. That's why sales incentives work well. It's one of the factors, but it is an important factor. Is like, what am I making when I sell this thing? And lastly, which is the kind of the surprising one for me, was they sell it because what's the relationship that they have with the brand? Which is a really interesting thing. And I tell this to all of our clients when I go and speak to their sales teams. I'm like, the people that sell your products, one of the reasons they sell the product is because of the relationship they have with you. So if you don't help equip those people with those other 5 components, if you don't build relationship with those people, then they're likely going to sell another brand over top of yours. So again, it's all about like getting context to stuff, right? Starting to build data around the data you have, building context to it so that you can get to better decisions.
I really like that idea there. The second time or a few times I bring up context, and I'm just thinking about myself, and I'm like, dang it, bro, imagine if I had this as a sales rep back in the day. how much better I could have been performing. Well, let's talk about this, leveraging sales incentive data to increase performance. When it comes towards creating sales incentive, what are your thoughts? If somebody's listening to this, how did they go about doing that in the first place?
Yeah, the first thing to do is understand the customer journey. Like you got to understand the customer journey, and then you got to understand the decisions that are made along that journey, and then align the incentives across that journey, right? Like an incentive at the end of the day is just a motivation tactic, right? It's a motivation to get an action at some point in time, right? So when we think about incentives as a company, we work with brands on it, there's tons of different incentives. There might be like a rebate for somebody when they buy something, they may get something back and they perceive that as a price discount, right? There may be a sales incentive that they give to a salesperson to, keep their brand top of mind and recommend their brand over top of another brand. There might be like volume incentives for, dealers or partners out there that are selling your product, which are to drive sales into their location. So you're getting, better placement, et cetera there. So I always say to the people, if you want to run an incentive program, don't think about what the incentive program is that you want to run. Think about your customer journey. Think about the customer journey, what happens along that journey. And then as you define the journey, look at it and say, where are opportunities to put in incentive to drive an action of purchase that I can do? So I think that's the most important thing, is understand the customer journey.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, Jason is going to pick up where we left off and continue to share with you the ideas that can help you with your incentive programs. You're listening to the Sales Evangelist Podcast, and I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. You're a young sales rep. You're working in your first big role, and then all of a sudden you realize that what you're doing isn't working anymore. You owe your mom money because you've been borrowing stuff to pay the rent. And then it just feels embarrassing that you're in sales and you can't even close a door. It sucked. That's the condition I was in. And I got into this program and it revolutionized my life. It revolutionized my business. It put me in the right track to where I'm at today. And that's why we created TSE Certified Sales Training Program. It's a course that helps individual sellers, no matter if you've been selling for 10 years or you've been selling for 10 days. The goal is simple. Help sellers find the right customers. We're going to teach you new strategies, things that you probably are not taking advantage of. How to create irresistible value so your buyers come to you over your competition and so you don't lose any more deals. And then finally, we're going to teach you how to close the deal easily. Go to thesalesevangelist.com/free course. Again, thesalesevangelist.com/free course, and take advantage of the first 2 modules absolutely free. When you fall in love with it, we'd love to have you join us. Again, go to thesalesevangelist.com/free course. This episode is also brought to you in part by Audible.com. If you have not taken advantage of Audible, I highly recommend it. It's the way I consume so many books. I have books that I physically read, but sometimes I just like to listen to the author share their insights and get the passion. It's so different, and I love it. And you can consume a lot of books throughout the year. If you want to test out Audible, they have a 30-day free trial for members of the TSE community, as well as a free book. Simply go to audibletrial.com/TSE. Again, audibletrial.com/TSE. You're going to love this stuff. Hey, we're back. Now, Jason is going to pick up where we left off and share with you some of these insights that can help you with your incentive programs. Listen up to what he has to share.
How often do you feel that how many companies, based on your experience working with a lot of these firms, don't understand their customer journey?
I would say almost all when we talk to them, because I think what happens, especially in large organizations, is there's lots of silos that happen. So people understand different components. Like there's a digital team that understand the digital journey. I mean, we've heard so much about omni-channel recently over the last few years, right? Where everybody's talking about offline and online and bringing them together. But there are different silos that understand different components of the journey. And it's really important to bring it all together and then understand the complete journey, understand the overall experience. I mean, I remember when I started the company in 2008, rebates were this like perceived price discount. And at the time, brands didn't actually want to pay consumer the rebates, right? I mean, they wanted what they call breakage. So let's create this rebate. Let's make it challenging so they don't actually always submit the rebate. And so it doesn't always get paid out, and that's considered breakage, so that it's not like a price discount on a product. And when we started the company, we're like, it was an interesting time, 2008. I mean, everything, we're living in a digital world today, but back then it was, starting to become very digital. There's stories about, United broke some guy's guitar and he had 12 million people watch a video of him sing a song about United breaking guitars. And, so it was starting to be the world where social media monitoring and social was important. And what we started to see was brands starting to say, hey, should we actually look at breakage or is that the right thing? And that's when we thought there was a huge opportunity to step in there and start saying, let's create an unbelievable experience for the consumer. And let's understand the entire journey that they go through and ensure that, the sale of your product is the jump off to the next thing, right? And we always say the rebate was the last touch point brands used to have. We want it to be the basis of the next journey that they have with you, the next purchase that they have with you, the next recommendation that they give with you. So, really understanding that. And I think that you start to see now, like a lot of our clients today, 10 years ago, they didn't have this. In today's world, a lot of organizations have people that are responsible for the customer journey throughout the entire organization. So they understand all the touch points that a brand has with a customer, and they can actually start to map that out and ensure that it's a great experience for them because, social and all that stuff is so important for them.
Yeah, back to what you shared there with silos. I can remember that when I was working in the corporate world, and it was ridiculous because here I am as a sales rep, want to perform to the best of my ability. But again, marketing had their thing, and then digital folks, which were kind of non-existent, had their folks, and then you have sales with their folks and their processes and things like that. And it just wasn't cohesive. It wasn't that good communication. So I appreciate you sharing that. Are there anything else that we need to be aware of when it comes towards creating these sales incentives to get the right data in the first place? You mentioned this.
Yeah, I think the customer journey for sure. I think that you got to understand what is the overall, economics is very important on sales and starting profitability and margin of product to help determine where you should do things and where you shouldn't do things. What are the levers to that? So we work a lot with our clients on, what's the journey? What are the economics around the products that you have? And how do you want to drive those through? And those are kind of the key components to start to ensure that you start to match the right incentives to that, journey that the customer consumer has.
Do you know of any companies, or are willing to share, you don't have to share names, and that you can give us an example that are you leveraging sales incentive data right now to increase their performance?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a bunch of large organizations that are leveraging our platform. What we typically find is that, they're executing, one thing with somebody and another thing with somebody else, and we try to bring all the data together. And what we really try to do is if you think about, insights and data, we always talk about it as looking back to looking forward, right? So a lot of our clients, when we start to do work with them, they're looking backwards. They're, doing reporting on like a monthly basis or weekly basis. They may do some data mining, and start to look at, why did something happen? But where we really try to get them to is forecasting, so they can start to forecast things out and then start to optimize. And our end goal, like as a company, the Holy Grail is like if somebody came and said, I have $1 million, what should I do with it to drive sales? We'd be able to show them. That's kind of like the Holy Grail that we want to help them with. So I'll give you an example. We have a large client that has, 20,000, different people that sell their products in North America, that their sales reps walk around with iPads and they walk into those locations and they're in the location showing, not all the support that they're giving them, and then how their location is doing versus other locations. And then what are the key things that the locations that are being more successful are doing and how to implement those things, right? And that's like a whole nother level of data. Like imagine being a salesperson and having a conversation where you're adding value, where you're saying, here's what's happening in your business today. Here's what's happening in your competitor's business. Here are the different things that they're doing. And with those different things, here's the results that they're getting. Like that's unbelievable data to have to help those people make better decisions.
Shoot, freaking that'll make some amazing decision there. And I'm sure they're seeing some ridiculously amazing turnaround as a sales rep or
Yeah. And then, like I was saying earlier, the one client where we helped them make decisions on how to spend their money after we dug into it, the industry average grew 3% the following year and they grew 10.5%. So when you're talking about a massive organization and they're able to use data to make those decisions and to grow, 3 and a bit times the average of all the rest in the industry, that's huge, right? And that's, as a salesperson, look, at the end of the day, you make money based on what you sell, right? So the more you can leverage the data to help sell more, for you to sell more and your customers to sell more, that's golden.
Shoot, you got me all day long on that. Shoot, I'll be reading everything. I will do everything I possibly can because I know that my results, again, my performance is going to be tied to that. Shoot.
Yeah.
If there's a sales manager out there listening or a business owner And this is the first time them hearing about this. And they want to go about this idea to take advantage of leveraging sales incentive data to increase performance. What other advice would you give to them?
Yeah, I mean, first I'd say, read. I mean, there's a lot to read up on and start to understand how to start to leverage these things and best practices around that. Like anything, there's a million things to read on all these different ways to drive sales. But I think, reading up on these things is really important. Starting to attend webinars on this. I start to see, brands starting to look at how they do things and how they do things differently. And I'm a person that likes to model the masters, right? Like find the people that are doing this the best and start to model the activities that they're doing, start to dissect and understand how are they getting that over other people, right? And I mean, I know one of the, I'll give you another, great example is, when we started the business, we were starting to, so we run these sales incentives for large brands. And as we started to dissect who the top sales people were, this is 2009, we were paying one person in North America over $1 million a year in sales incentives from, about 5 or 6 different brands at that time. And I was trying to figure out, how is this person crushing it so much, right? And what they did was they saw this huge opportunity to move. This product was typically done in bricks and mortar sales. They moved the sales to online and they were getting paid the commission for all sales across the US they were making of the sale online. And so what this person, all they did was they saw this, mechanism of e-com happening. They built a tool, that had e-com in it that provided huge value, provide reviews, recommendation, and decision engines for customers. And from that, they were getting a huge amount of incentives. And because the brands weren't used to e-com at the level of e-com then, this person was getting it all personally to themselves. So they're getting paid over $1 million a year in just sales incentives. Not to mention all the sales they actually made, themselves with their business. So I always try to look at what are the trends that are happening out there. How do I look at where the trend affected another business, and then how do I leverage that within my business?
Oh my goodness, dude, that's amazing. That is just like, that sales rep was a genius. It reminds me of this guy I knew who took advantage of technology back in the days, and it helped him significantly to, stand out from his whole team. It was just like, it's working smarter, not harder.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's when you think of sales management is you want to look at the people that are doing things differently, the people that challenge the status quo, And I think as sales managers, you want them, all those different individuals, right? You want your A players that are, always challenging the status quo, always looking for different ways, that are always working smarter. You want those people. And then you also want those people that are in your camp that are, I remember my last company I had that I ran, I had a sales rep that at 4:30 at the end of the day, he'd sit in front of the phone and he would call. I mean, this is 2005, I guess. So not very many emails and LinkedIn and all that, but he'd literally call until he made 10 sales, and he would stay there until whatever time it was at night until he made 10 sales. And I was like, was one of the most successful sales guys I knew, not because he worked smart, because he worked hard and because he had this science behind him that every day he knew that if he made calls and made 10 sales, he would achieve his quota by the end of the year, and he just literally just called, and it would be East Coast, and then it'd be Central Time, and then it'd be
Dang.
West Coast if it still was the time, and I always love him. It's that's tenacity, right? And a lot of times it takes some tenacity at the beginning to be successful as a salesperson. You got to put in the time, I always say, to understand what the best ways to do things are, to start to, model the masters, and then you can start to work really smart and do those, like Tim Ferriss talks about the 5-hour work weeks.
Dude, hashtag discipline to that dude.
Absolutely.
Well, if there's one major piece of advice you'd like folks listening to this episode to walk away with, what's that one major piece of advice?
I would say understand the customer journey from beginning to end. I know there's one of the things that we talked about before, was the data. And I know there's a great article that, we share a lot with our clients about data being the new oil. And, it's crazy when you think about a couple of years ago, you had Tesla shipping 25,000 cars and GM shipping 2.5 million cars, and Tesla worth more than GM. And what Tesla understood was the journey. What they understood was how to leverage the data. They went from a car that couldn't drive itself to, a year later, it drives itself 80% of the time. And that's just leveraging data for efficiency and changing their business. And they've changed the whole industry, right? So I would just say, understand the journey, understand the data that happens throughout the journey, and then figure out how to leverage that.
Love it, man. Well, this is awesome. And if folks out there want to get in touch with you and to learn more about what you guys do and how potentially maybe you can help them, what's the best way for them to go about doing so?
Yeah, check us out, 360insights.com, and would love to talk to people, and, always love having great conversations about sales. Sales is in my blood, it's been my thing since the very beginning. So, appreciate what you do. And when we were talking earlier and you're talking about, entrepreneurs listen to your programs, like that's the toughest thing for an entrepreneur is understanding. And I appreciate everything you do for entrepreneurs and salespeople out there.
Well, it's an honor, man. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you.
All right, man. Take care. Have a great day.
Man, I'm telling you, Jason came, he saw, he conquered. He offered some great insights, things that I never even thought about when it came towards incentive. And I feel that it can definitely help you and your team as well. To find out more information about Jason, we have information in our show notes, thesalesevangelist.com/the-word episode number 1113. Again, thesalesevangelist.com/the-word episode number 1113. That's 1113th episode. Yes, sir. Or you can go ahead and swipe up on the cover art if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, and you'll see the information in the show notes there. Connect with Jason and tell him that you heard him on the Sales Evangelist podcast. He'll be super stoked. Also, check out our sponsors, folks over at Audible, as well as TSE Certified Sales Training Program. We have links right back in the show notes directly there for you. Make it easy and simple. I would love to have you join our program. And also, my friends at Audible is excited to give you that free book. If you want to try it and you want to find a good book to start off with, test out Grit. It's by Angela Duckworth. Absolutely fantastic book. And it's going to get you so pumped and excited every single day to go out and hustle. Find all the details again in the show notes. All in all, I share this with you because I want you to be successful. I want you to find more ideal customers. I want you to build stronger value. I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want to challenge you each and every single day to go out and do big things. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our show today. If this is your first time listening to the show, I ask that you go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave us an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you listen to find podcasts. It goes a long way when someone comes behind you and they read the comments and they're like, this is the show for me. Telling you, man, it's greatly appreciated. Our show today was produced by myself and the Sales Podcast Network. It was edited and mixed together by the one and only Jershon O'Bale. Our content writer and show note creator is Mrs. Shannon Rasmussen. You can find audio credits to this and all of our episodes in each of our show notes. And as always, I am your host, your coach, your mentor, your guide down the sales journey, Mr. Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist. Sales Podcast Network.